Alan Ross. I'm the managing editor of APC Technologies. My guest, John McDonald, is one of the ones I love having John on. John, welcome to this. I'm not sure what we're calling this, but it's actually a promotion for a panel that you're doing at TechCon in January in Charlotte, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Alan.
Okay, but let me, in case people don't know you, but I'd be shocked if they don't. John is the business development head of Grid Solutions for GE, which I know is going to be coming up with another name because I saw it in the New York Times for GE Energy is going to be GE
Vernova.
And I hated the name until I saw it with the green GE bullet because I thought they were doing away with the GE bullet. But I'm delighted, and I think it's a great move for GE. Just tell me sometime later which stock I should buy: aerospace, medical, or Vernova. Okay. Anyway, John is also an IEEE. He is a fellow at IEEE. What do they call you at IEEE? You're not just a fellow.
A life fellow.
A life fellow. That's it. I'm a fellow. You're a life fellow. He's also an honorary member of Seagray. He is the National Academy of Engineering. John is a go-to person for me because, number one, he loves to share. He gives freely of the knowledge that he has. And number two, he's passionate about this industry. And so I think that passion is why you and I have such a good time together. John, I want to talk to you. The panel that you're going to be leading is one on SF6 gas and the replacements that the industry is trying to find for SF6. Before we talk about the problem, how did we get here? How did we ever use a gas? It's kind of like, why did we ever use PCBs, right? But how did we get to the point, and how bad is SF6 for the environment?
I think it's I think a lot of people wonder the same thing. I think it goes back, a lot of the foods that we've been eating for a long time, we find that they're carcinogen. So you say, why did we ever start eating those? But I think the main thing is once we studied it, we found that I'll get just one idea here is it's estimated that over a 100-year period, SF6 is 23,500 times more effective at trapping infrared radiation than CO2. And 1 kilogram of SF6 has the same impact as 23,500 kilograms of CO2. But once it's in the atmosphere, its lifetime is 3,200 years, which means it can accumulate, for a long time. So it's pretty serious, and that's why there's a lot of emphasis now on alternatives for SF6, but also why we wanted to have this panel, Alan, to say, are there different with alternatives to SF6, are there different approaches, by different companies, and what are the trade-offs?
So that, and I don't want, we could talk about SF6 and we could talk about the solutions because I know you've got a lot of knowledge about it. But what we really want to talk about and what we really want to promote is this panel that you are conducting at the TechCon conference, which I think is going to be brilliant. And so you have 3 people that you selected for the panel because you're the moderator of that panel. I know Thomas Schultz from Hitachi. It's Thomas with Hitachi, yeah. And I don't know Yannick. And what's Yannick's last name?
Yannick Kiefel with GE Grid Solutions. He's in France.
Okay, and I think maybe I met him at a GE thing or something. And then Paul Raskelian, he is with who?
Siemens.
Siemens, GE, Hitachi. I mean, it's like the who's who of knowledge and stuff. Brilliant work. So those are the 3 panelists that you've got there. What I really want to talk about, not about what you're talking about. Hey, go to TechCon, register. I can guarantee you just this panel alone will be worth the cost of registration and the time you spent. And by the way, it's the first conference of the year. You're not worn out. I'm talking to the audience now. You're not worn out. Get an airplane ticket. It is Charlotte, which is a wonderful city, my second favorite city in the Southeast next to Atlanta, where John and I both live. So John, some of the things I want to talk about, obviously the names, the brand names of the companies these guys work for. Why them? Why did you choose them?
It's a good question. We if you look at the industry, you look at the literature, and you look at the SF6 alternatives, what you find is with Yannick and with GE, you find what's called G cubed, okay, as GE's alternative to SF6. Also with Hitachi Energy, what you find is what they call Econ IQ. That's their alternative.
Okay.
And with Siemens, they talk about extinguishing. They're looking at vacuum interruption systems for switching and arc extinguishing with what they call clean air at the high voltage insulating medium. So clean air. I'm interested in the panel because I want to learn more about what clean air is. But what I like about the format is most panel sessions, you just come in and you have the three panelists. At TechCon, we do something different, Alan. We have each of the three panelists have 15 minutes to make a presentation first. Okay.
Wow, yeah.
So you'll get an idea, more detail from each of the three. Then we take a break, and then I'll have all the three panelists together, and I'll say, okay, you can summarize your key points from your 15 minutes just to refresh the audience with what
Right.
you feel are key points. And then we'll have a question and answer session, and then we'll open up to the audience to ask questions. So what I like is we have a lot of time to stimulate the audience with information where they can have time to think about questions, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions from the audience.
It's kind of like you put a free for all of the three potential solutions and you're putting them all up in the panel. And
Yeah.
and then the audience gets to ask questions about the decision. I've heard about the clean air one, and I thought to myself, if it doesn't have any gas in it, it's because we just don't want to replace SF6 with another bad gas, but the system and the process. And somebody told me, and this was Seagray, there will not be one solution like SF6 was the solution. This is not going to happen now. And that's why you have three companies who've worked on and are working on three different solutions, which probably have unique applications. Some of them better in one, some of them better than the other, right?
Yeah, and also think about different configurations, different types of equipment, also different voltage levels,
Right,
you know. So, uh, European type voltage levels versus more North American voltage levels. So each company has their own roadmap in terms
right,
of what their highest priorities are, with respect to type of equipment and voltage levels
right.
that they're going to implement, design first and get certified and have commercially available.
Now, I don't want to give away the content of what you're doing, but is this going to be recorded so that if somebody can't attend, there would be a possibility that they get, and if the answer is no, then you and I are going to do another panel and we're going to record something similar to it, because I think it's brilliant and I think it is timely. But I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit. You know grid, smart grid, grid edge, you know it very, very well. What impact do you think that any of these changes in SF6 being replaced are going to have on this, what I'm calling the nascent grid edge? It's the green energy grid edge. It's different and it's changing rapidly. It's not just wind and solar anymore. It's wind and solar, large storage. Hydrogen is now, everybody wants to spend money on hydrogen. Uh, SF6 in those applications and replacing them, how do you see, or why is it important that we focus on this right now for the smart grid edge?
There's so much work going on right now. We have, we have a task force on climate change in the IEEE Power and Energy Society. We, at all levels, there's a lot of emphasis on clean tech and climate change. What what I like about this is that can you help the environment in a way that doesn't take away from managing the grid reliably and economically and continue to have stability? And what we're finding is that we can replace SF6 and not change the footprint, the
Right,
size of the equipment, or the specs, the
okay,
capability of the equipment. So it's really the best of both worlds. If you can take equipment, maintain its quality, maintain its footprint. Footprint's very important with when we
Extremely.
talk about substations and how big the say the T&D equipment is. But if you can maintain the footprint, maintain the specs, and help the environment all at the same time, it's really a win-win. And that's what we're finding we're able to do with these alternatives.
Yeah, I'm not, again, I don't want to give away the panel's discussion, but these are not just replacing the SF6 gas. This is actually a different methodology, I assume, right? You're just not, hey, here's a fluid, replace this, or here's a gas, replace the gas. You're now just saying, no, it's got to be and what you're saying, when you connect it, you're not changing that footprint to do it, but it's not just replacing the gas, is it?
No, it's really a new design of equipment,
Okay.
to take into account the characteristics of that gas. Um, but what, the goal is when you have this new design, what's the present footprint of the SF6 equipment?
Right.
And obviously, from a utility point of view, you don't want to say, well, I can help the environment, but it's gonna be 1.5 times bigger than what you
Yeah.
use today.
Yeah.
You know, I always say, when we develop things, we need to take into account price and performance. If we develop something, we think it's the best thing since sliced bread, but it's too costly, no one's ever going to use it. Or if the performance isn't as
Yeah.
good as what it was, again, people won't be interested in it. So we really have to maintain certain standards, with new things, so that they're commercially attractive and people want to buy them.
I think this panel, John, when I think about, I'm going to give a promotion for TechCon right now. If I were specifying equipment, if I were in charge of substations, if I were at a utility, small, big, co-op, doesn't matter. If you're using, and even industrial people, companies have now started using SF6 a decade ago. So anybody that's using SF6 needs to know about what you all are talking about to come away informed. The idea that you're offering these 15-minute, they all get to speak, then they get to speak again, and then
Yeah.
you get to have Q&A, and hopefully you have some really good discussion between them, which I know you're brilliant at doing. But I would strongly urge, you always think about why should you go to a conference, right? This one panel alone is dynamically worth, multiplier worth, the cost of going to it or the time spent. The other part about it, I think, is really good. People are going to come away, those very people, the end users are going to come away significantly more knowledgeable, and their bosses are going to go, wow, you're at the leading edge of this. I'm going to give you more money, or I'm going to promote you, or I'm going to lay off 50 people, but not you. It's a career builder to learn all of these things, which is also what happens at TechCon. It is one of the best technical conferences put on by the industry. It's tight in the fact that it's not like you're going to go to one and miss everything else. You're going to get this. So, what is the last thing that you can say about why not for this panel, because I think we made a case for that, about coming to TechCon?
Well, let me just say, TechCon, it's January 31st to February 2nd. It's hosted by Duke Energy, right? That's why it's in Charlotte. There's several panel sessions. There's a lot of training sessions. There's a couple keynote talks. But I find, like you said, Alan, I find in a very short period of time, I can learn a tremendous amount of information, but also I can network with a lot of key industry people, you
Yeah.
know, and take you know, your situation of the boss, right? The boss says, how did you learn all that? You just made one trip and you learned all that about 3 different manufacturers. In
Yeah.
other words, you know as much as if you made one trip to GE, one trip to Hitachi, and one trip to Siemens. Instead of making 3 trips, you can make one trip, hear all 3, have a chance to talk to the 3 panelists to get more information, have copies of their papers, right? And it's to me it's a good bang for the buck. You learn a lot of good information, network with a lot of people with one trip.
One of the
One
neat
brief
things,
trip.
John, one of the neat things I love about you, and I hope people say this about me is we never lose our passion for making things better. That is IEEE. What I love about it, I was in a meeting in IEEE uh, with some other people yesterday, and I was trying to decommit the amount of time and energy I give to it. I ended up committing more because I got so passionate about it. And what we were talking about was grid edge and where we're going in grid edge and all the change there. But thank you for your commitment to the industry, because this is not just a commitment to TechCon. And I love the fact that it's not just a GE thing. You're taking the who's who of the industry in the development of what's happening to replace SF6. I did not realize how bad of a gas it was until you sent me that information about 2,300 times in the last 3,200 years. But thanks for making the world a better place and for teaching people how to do that. Appreciate it very much, John.
Alan, always good to talk with you. Always good to see you. And I hope we have a good turnout at TechCon, because there'll be a lot of good information that we'll be conveying.
Well, I hope this promoted out is through our APC Technologies audience and promoted out through social media, and I'm sure TechCon will do something with it. I hope anybody who may have just said, yeah, another conference, suddenly looks at it again and says, wow, this is a conference I would recommend. If I were to recommend two this year to go to, and I'm going to be selfish, one of them would be IEEE Smart Grid in San Diego, and this would be the other one. And obviously, the people at Distributech are going to say, well, why not us? Well, that would be the third. John, thank you so much, my friend.
All right, Alan. Good to see you. Bye-bye, Alan.
Good to see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.